Hey guys, Jim here, Redo Banshee Parts and Accessories, and today we are going to look at sealing up your case halves when you've taken your case apart to replace the crank or replace the transmission or what have you. This video is just going to show you our method to using your Yamaha bond or using your Honda bond or whatever silicone, semi-drying high temp liquid gasket that you use to seal and put the cases back together. So as you can see today, we've got the motor flipped upside down. Typically I do it the other way around where we have the crank and everything, but in order to, this top end was good in this motor, so I just left everything on here. And so you can see if you just need to replace a transmission and not the crank, you can actually flip the Banshee motor over and do it upside down, and that's all we had to do. We just had a C-step transmission shaft here. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave it this way, and we're going to just place everything in the case halves this way, and then we're going to have our blank case halves like this, and that way we got a nice flat surface here without anything sticking up out of it to be able to put our glue on here, right? Okay, so first thing we want to do is prep, obviously. Now I've already scraped these cases, and I use a little brass wire brush, just a real light, nothing scratchy, nothing that's gonna remove any material, but just something simple. And I just go over it, and I go over both sides and make sure that all the glue is off of there. And I use a little scraper to scrape the glue off. Once that's done, then you're gonna want to make sure that all the oils and everything, blow it off with air. And then I just use brake cleaner on a rag here. Now I've already done this, but I'm just going to show you what we do. I'm just going to go over this flat section, and we're just going to make sure that we got all the, I'm just going to go over it really easy here and just make sure we've got all the oils off of these cases and make sure they're good and dry. And then you'll want to do this side, as good as you can get in. Now if you've got all this stuff out of the way, it's easier to get in here, but I've already done this. I've already gone over and taken some time doing this, so I don't need to do it again on video, but that gives you an idea. Use the brake cleaner on a rag, a paper towel here. Make sure you get all the oils off of both surfaces so that your glue will stick. Now, the glue we usually use is Yamaha bond, or they also make, a 311 makes a product that's the same thing, but I was out of Yamaha bond, so I got Honda bond here. It's the same stuff. It's just a liquid gasket, like a semi-drying liquid gasket. It's this gray stuff here. You can see it's pretty thick. The Yamaha bond is actually a little thinner than this, and it's real stringy. This stuff actually works really nice. So the way I do it here, guys, is once your surfaces are clean and this thing's ready to button back together, I just take a little of this stuff on my finger, and I just do it here. Now, a little bit of this stuff goes a long way, guys, so you do not have to have a thick coat. In fact, the thicker the coat, the more of a mess this stuff makes. So as you can see, I'm just spacing it out. I'm just putting it on and I'm wiping off my edges, because if you don't, it'll squirt out everywhere. And just use the excess that's on your finger here to just wipe on a nice thin layer. And I do the thick areas and come back. I kind of dab it on first, as you can see. We just dab it on. Clean off our edges. Just make sure that the whole surface is covered. Yeah, make sure that there's not any paper towels on there still. As you can see, we just get it on here. Alright, so we're going to cut right now, and then when we come back, I'll show you what it looks like when all the stuff is on there and it's ready to bolt back together. Alright guys, back again. So let's take a look here at the cases. This is what it should look like when the cases are ready to go back together. So you can see we've got a very thin layer all the way around, Just make sure that there isn't any spots. This is real thin. The thicker you put it on, guys, the more it's just going to squeeze out everywhere and look like crap. So then what I do is I just go around the edges with my finger. I make sure that I get any of the excess off, wipe it off. Get it ready to glue back together. This is pretty clean. We got these dialed in pretty good, okay? So now what we're gonna do is we're just going to go ahead and set the case halves right back on here. We're going to torque it all down to specs. We're not gonna look at that on this video. This video is just about gluing the cases back together, but on further videos we'll look at torque specs and those sort of things. Pay attention to the fact that the torque specs on these bottom and top bolts are very important. You can't just tighten these things down as tight as you want them, because if you do, there's special clearances inside these bearings. If you get them too tight, it puts excess pressure on the bearings and it can break your bearing races. Okay? The only reason I know that is, for one, I read the book, and for two, I broke lots of bearings in the past. So now we torque everything down to the correct torque specs on these. All right? So what we're going to do to glue these down, we're just going to make sure that everything lines up here. So we got to make sure our shift forks line up inside our inside here. So we're going to set. Now be careful when you put this back together that you don't, scrape it across here and take all your glue off. So we line them up carefully on the studs. The other thing, guys, you want to do is you want to make sure that all these alignment pins on your crank, this is important. Make sure the alignment pins are in the right spot. Now this is upside down, but when you look at the motor side, you can see where the alignment pins go. You see these notches here? This is where your alignment pins go, all right? You want to make sure. Now this one has a real tiny one. The crank side has a really tiny one. You can see it's like if you can see it, it's a tiny little nipple inside there. I don't know if you can see it, but it's a little tiny bump. If I turn that bearing, you might be able to see it better. Now, that one needs to go, against the case halves, and then of course this one. If you get these alignment pins in the wrong spot, it'll bind your cases up and you won't be able to get them closed, and then you won't be able to lock them down. All right, so we're gonna line this up. All right, we're gonna make sure our shift forks are in the right spot. We're gonna make sure that the retaining clips on the transmission gears, the little half circles, that they're in the right spots, and they are. All right, so doing it upside down like this is kind of a pain because you have to make sure that the shift forks are going in, and these gears, they slide. So you gotta make sure that those are in the right spot. All right, bingo. Now, you can give it a little tap, just to make sure it goes down, because there's alignment pins in there. Okay, just a little tap. Now, guys, you can see these case halves are clear together now. Okay, you see there's no gaps, right? Okay, check it out. There's no gaps on this side. There's no gaps on this side. There's no gaps here. This all looks good. And that's just by giving it a light tap, guys. Not, we're not putting our back into it. Just a light tap. If it does not seat down when it's upside down like this, if it does not seat down perfectly flat like this, okay, then you've got a alignment pin that's moved on you. You've got something holding it up. Do not force these cases, all right? Now, if your motor's flipped upside down and you're putting the top half on and it doesn't seat down all the way, it's because these bolts that you see sticking out right here, they're hitting the table, all right? So it won't seat down perfectly flat when it's rolled over the other direction. I hope that made sense. But anyways, you can see these are locked down. So the next thing we're gonna do, we're just gonna put our 8 nuts on right here. We're gonna get them, hand tight, right? So that the cases are stuck tight together. Then we're gonna flip the motor over and we're gonna put our long bolts through the top side. Okay, we're gonna get those hand tight, and then we're gonna flip it back over, and then we're gonna torque our bottom nuts, and then we're gonna flip it over and torque our top nuts, and then that's it. That's how you do it. All right, guys, thanks for following along with me. I appreciate it. If you got questions, make sure to hit us up online, www.redo-parts.com. You can catch us on Facebook, Instagram, and you can also give us a call anytime at 541-419-6054. Have an awesome day. Bye-bye.